please remember it's important to select a picture that will work with every other picture you're going to overlay in the picture. Next, we open the secondary picture to apply, and you'll see in the upper left-hand corner where it says Clone Stamp. It looks like a stamp. Click on that. Next, move your cursor over the secondary picture that you're going to apply to the primary picture. It's going to look like a circle. Now, hold down your Alt button and push your left mouse button at the same time to select what you want to copy from the secondary picture to the primary picture with the clone stamp. Now, move your cursor over to the primary picture, and from there, using your left mouse button, you can apply the secondary picture on top of the primary picture. At the top of the screen in Photoshop, you'll notice something called flow and opacity. That will help you to determine how dark your clone stamp will be. Now, opening a new secondary picture, you can begin to repeat the process, laying one picture over a top of another picture again and again with the clone stamp. Again, putting your cursor over the secondary picture, highlight with your circle using your Alt and your left mouse button to select what you want to copy from the secondary picture to the primary picture. You will notice that we now have edges around the picture that we have copied from the secondary to the primary. Now look to the left-hand side and you will see directly next to the clone stamp the history stamp. With your history brush, the opacity and flow tools, you will be able to selectively remove pieces of the cloned image on top of the primary until you have an image that suits your purpose. Again, it's just a matter of using the left mouse button with the opacity and flow set to points that you like until you have removed the pieces that are unnecessary to your picture. For the third image, I decided I would rotate horizontally the picture so that it would better fit into the framework of the primary picture. At the top of your screen, you'll see where it says Image. Choose Rotate Canvas, and you can rotate at your leisure in a variety of ways. In this case, we chose horizontal. And wouldn't you want to horizontally rotate Jamie Bamber? I tell you, isn't he just so fine? Once more, choose the Clone Stamp tool, and as before, select on the secondary picture what you want to clone with, and go to the primary picture to apply. For this instance, I selected the pinpoint of light in his eye, and chose to apply it where there was a star in the primary picture. The light-to-light aspect helps to blend the picture better. As before, use the History Brush tool to help blend this smoothly using the opacity and flow to determine how much of the picture you're going to correct and revert to the original status. Now that you have a base picture created, I would strongly recommend that you save as A for your first background picture. Just like with any work in progress, you want to make sure and save between the major steps. This way you don't lose any progress that you've already had, and you're able to erase at leisure without removing your background. Be sure to save it at maximum capacity. This way later you'll have full resolution. If you need to shrink it, you can always shrink it after the final piece is completed. Now close the primary picture. This would be the time to open that primary picture in another file, namely like ACDC or Picture Viewer, to see if you like how the composition looks so far. If you don't like the composition so far, now would be the time to begin again, using the steps I've already outlined to clone other pictures onto a basic background. From here it simply becomes more complicated. Close and reopen your primary background if you've decided to use this. You can do that by using the Open Recent file. Once you have reopened the base background picture, Open a fourth picture that you're going to use to overlay, and just as before, using your clone stamp in the upper left-hand corner, select with your Alt button held down and your left mouse key on your secondary picture what you're going to clone onto your primary background. Once more with your history brush, remove the aspects of the secondary picture that you don't want to be placed on top of your primary background. Remember, your opacity and flow tools are your friends. From this stage on, I would recommend that between each new picture you lie on top of the background picture, you save with letters or numbers alternating 1, 2, 3, or ABC. Between each save, check the composition with either ACDC or Picture Viewer, some method to see if you like how it's proceeding so far. If you don't, simply revert and continue from the point that you last enjoyed looking at your composition. On the fifth picture that we're going to apply, we're going to change the size of our brush in order to get a good circle without having to copy the entire picture with small strokes. Now the first picture that you applied to the primary background will make more sense once you have placed the fifth picture on top of it. It will show through slightly, and this is why you want to think through a picture before you create it. Now you're ready to add text to your picture. Once you have decided that everything has been applied in a fashion that you like, I would recommend that you save your picture at this stage and then continue from there. Place your cursor where you want your text to begin, then type in what you want to have placed on top of your image, and from that point you will choose the font you want and the size. Now at the top of your screen you're going to see an option called Layer. You'll open that up and go to Layer Style and choose Blending Options. From here I would really just play around. However, just so that you know, Drop Shadow is probably one of the most common options that you'll use, as well as Bevel and Contrast. For this pick I chose only Drop Shadow and Bevel and Contrast. It makes for a typical and standard text type that seems to stand out from the picture. Now that you've applied your layering to your text, go to the Layer option again and choose Flatten Image. This will rasterize everything and make sure that you don't have any difficulties later. I would recommend at this point to save. From here, I've chosen to utilize plugins. Plugins give me options for things like frames or edges that are different from what normally come with the Photoshop utility. You will find that all of these things are applied through filters. Plugins, that is, are applied through filters. Any of the filters could be used at this stage to change the picture in its entirety, perhaps to canvas or apply a lens flare. In this instance, I chose a simple glass frame option so that you could see through and none of the aspects of the picture were lost. From here, you save the picture as a final and get ready. You're almost done. And finally, once you've finished saving your picture, just have a look at it and see if you like the final composition. Of course, if you don't, just delete it and start all over again. Thank you for listening to How to Photoshop with Clone Stamp.